Why smart people stay stuck for way longer than they should. If you're smart, you can build a case for almost anything. You can make dysfunction sound strategic. You can make fear sound practical. Now you're not trapped because you don't know. You're trapped because you keep knowing and doing nothing about it. Hard lessons and real wins. Hosted by me, Nick Visoky. All right, let's get into it. Let's discuss a topic that misleads a lot of people. Why smart people stay stuck for way longer than they should. Because when someone is intelligent, you'll assume they'll figure it out fast. You assume they'll see the problem, make the move, fix the pattern, change the situation, and keep moving forward. But that's not how it always works. Sometimes smart people stay stuck the longest. Not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, because they're excellent at explaining things. They're good at rationalizing. They're good at surviving. They're good at making the wrong things sound reasonable. And owning that skill is risky. And as a bonus, if you stay with me until the very end of this video, I'll show you a perfect example of this in real life. Matter of fact, from now on, I'm going to leave a little bonus at the end of each video for the people who actually stay until the end. So if you ever see the 3, 2, 1 countdown, just know that something extra is coming. So stick around. See, a lot of smart people don't get trapped because they can't think. They get trapped because they can think their way around the truth. They can explain why now isn't the right time, why they need a little more certainty, why they should wait a little bit longer, why the situation isn't that bad, why staying is responsible, why leaving would be dramatic, why maybe they're overreacting, and why maybe this is just what adult life feels like. And before they know it, they've spent 2 years, 5 years, 10 years living inside a story that made sense in their head, but slowly killing them in real life. Unfortunately, it happens. I strongly believe one of the reasons smart people stay stuck is because intelligence doesn't always create honesty. Let's digest that for a moment. Sometimes it creates a better denial, because if you're smart, you can build a case for almost anything. You can make dysfunction sound strategic. You can make fear sound practical. You can make exhaustion sound normal. And you can make misalignment sound mature. And if nobody around you is challenging that thinking, you can stay in the wrong life for a very long time while still sounding completely reasonable. That is a trap. See, a lot of smart people get rewarded early in life for figuring things out, for adapting, for reading the room, for solving problems, and for pushing through. So when life gets hard later, their instinct isn't usually to stop and ask, is this right for me? Their instinct is, how do I figure this out? How do I carry this better? How do I become more efficient at tolerating something that might not fit me at all? That's the part that people miss. A smart person can become incredibly skilled at functioning inside the wrong situation. And from the outside, that looks impressive. But from the inside, it feels like slow erosion. Let's be honest here. I've done that in my own life. There were times where I stayed too long, not because I didn't know something was off, but because I kept trying to make it make sense. I kept thinking, maybe I just need to be more disciplined. Maybe I need to push through. Maybe I need to stop being so emotional. Maybe this is just what responsibility feels like. Or maybe this is what grown adults do. And yes, sometimes adult life is hard. Sometimes you do have to push through, but sometimes you're not being strong. You're just being slow to admitting the real truth. That's different. And that distinction matters. Because smart people often confuse understanding a problem with solving it. Let's dive into that for a moment. You can understand exactly why you're unhappy and still do nothing. You can understand exactly why the relationship, job, business, path, or identity isn't working and still stay there. You can explain the pattern perfectly and still keep repeating it. Awareness is powerful. But awareness without action turns into a very polished form of self-deception. Now you're not trapped because you don't know. You're trapped because you keep knowing and doing nothing about it. And that creates a different kind of frustration, because now every day starts to feel heavier. Not just because the situation is wrong, but because some part of you knows you're cooperating with it. Yeah, that's brutal. Allow me to give you another reason. Smart people can see way too many angles. So they can see the upside, they can see the downside, the risk, the opportunity, the possible outcome, the emotional cost, the timing issue, the financial pressure, the disappointment, the embarrassment, and the what if. And the what if after the what if. And eventually all that thinking creates paralysis. Now they're not moving because they're waiting for the perfect move, the perfect timing, the perfect certainty, the perfect emotional readiness, and that never comes. Because life doesn't usually hand you clarity before movement. It usually hands you clarity after the fact. That's why overthinking keeps so many smart people stuck. Don't get me wrong, it's not because they're not capable, because they're trying to think their way to a level of certainty that life rarely gives. And then there's ego. I love this one. Let's talk about it. Smart people usually don't like feeling like beginners. They don't like to look unsure. They don't like being seen as the person who has to pivot. They don't like admitting that the current version is no longer working. Because once you're known as the smart one, it becomes very uncomfortable to make moves that look messy. Now your identity starts fighting your growth. Now you're not asking, what should I do? You're asking, what will people think if I do it? And that question has kept a lot of smart people in the wrong chapter for way too long. Not because they didn't know any better, because their image became more important than their peace. And here's the irony. Some of the smartest people I've seen were not stuck because they lacked intelligence. They were stuck because they lacked permission. Permission to change, permission to disappoint people, permission to walk away, permission to stop performing, and permission to admit this no longer fits me. That's why some people stay in careers they hate, stay in businesses that drain them, stay in identities they outgrew years ago, and stay in patterns that keep making them smaller. Because they were waiting for some official moment where leaving becomes justified, where change becomes obvious, where everybody agrees. And that moment usually doesn't come. A lot of growth begins when you finally stop waiting for the universe to give you approval. So what does being stuck actually look like? Well, for one, it doesn't always look like over the top. Sometimes it looks like you're doing just fine. You're functioning, you're showing up, you're paying the bills, you're answering emails, you're making plans, you're laughing, you're posting. You look pretty stable. But underneath all of it, there's this quiet resistance, this constant drag, this low-grade heaviness, this feeling that something in your life is requiring too much pretending. That's what stuck usually feels like. Not a collapse or friction, not chaos or misalignment, not disaster or drain. And smart people are often very good at ignoring that kind of signal because it doesn't look urgent enough. Until it does. Now let's make this more practical. If you think you might be stuck, ask yourself this. What am I still explaining away that I already know is true? That's a hard question, because usually the truth is not missing, it's just inconvenient. Second, what am I calling responsible that is actually fear? That one matters too, because smart people are very good at dressing up fear in professional clothing. Third, what part of my identity is making it harder to tell the truth? Is it pride? Is it image? Is it being the reliable one? Is it needing people to see you in a certain way? Because sometimes you're not stuck in the situation. You're stuck in the role you built inside it. And until you question the role, the pattern will stay. Here's what else I've learned. The longer smart people stay stuck, the more they start to doubt themselves. Not because they're becoming less capable, because they're living too far away from what is honest. That distance starts to mess with you. Now your energy drops, your clarity drops, your confidence drops, your patience gets thinner. Your nervous system starts acting like it's tired of your decisions. And then you become mean to yourself. Maybe this is not who I thought I was. No. Sometimes you're not broken. You're just overdue for honesty. And that is a very different problem, and it has a very different solution. The solution is not always exciting. Sometimes it starts with admitting one thing, one real thing. One thing you've been avoiding because once you say it, you can't unsee it. Maybe it's, I don't want this anymore. Maybe it's, this path worked for who I was, but not for who I am now. Maybe it's, I've been calling this discipline, but it's really fear. Or maybe it's, I'm not confused. I'm resisting. That kind of honesty can change everything. Not because it fixes your life overnight, because it stops the internal split. And once you stop lying to yourself, your decisions get cleaner. Still uncomfortable, but cleaner. I think a lot of people assume that smart people should be moving fast. But honestly, a lot of wisdom comes from finally moving after you stay too long, after you overthought it, after you explained it to death, after you tried to be reasonable for way too long, after life made it clear that your intelligence wasn't a problem. Your unwillingness to be honest was. That's when things change. Now when you become smarter, when you become clearer. So if this is hitting home, I want to say something directly. If you're smart but stuck, that doesn't make you a fraud. It makes you human. It means you've probably spent a little too much time thinking, explaining, managing, performing, and carrying. And maybe now it's time to tell the truth. Not the polished truth, the real one. Because smart people don't always need more information. Sometimes they need less avoidance. Sometimes they need less ego. Sometimes they need less performance. And sometimes they need one honest decision more than they need 10 more months of analysis. That's where real movement starts. Alright, if this connected with you, go ahead and drop a comment, hit the like button, share, subscribe. The works. And if you know someone who needs this, go ahead and send it to them. Because a lot of smart people are quietly stuck right now. Not because they're not capable, because they've gotten very good at surviving things they should have questioned sooner. And if you're here for real conversations about rebuilding, pressure, money, discipline, and long-term wins, subscribe. Because we're not building this channel on fake confidence, we're building it on truth. And I'll see you at the next one. Thank you for watching. Here we go. Let's dive in. I think we're in. Let's do this.
That's a reaction, right? Anybody in here that thinks 1 times 1 equals 1, then you give me 2 pounds and I'll give you a pound back. And we'll call that even, right?
What about what he was saying is incorrect?
We're going to get into something about multiplication, where Terrence has an issue with multiplication.
I don't have an issue with multiplication either.
Well, then 1 times 1 is what?
1 times 1 should equal 2.
Hey, pull out your calculator. And I want you to enter the square root of 2 in there, and let's walk through this loop. That is the square root of 2. Take the square root of 2, 1.414213562373095. You cube it, it's 2.
Guys, settle down. I mean, we gotta give him credit where credit is due. Those speaking skills are impeccable. Acting, it's questionable, but I'm not here to judge. For a brief moment there, he had me questioning if I'm really 42, or is it just 4 plus 2? I'm gonna have to marinate on that for a little bit longer. But luckily for me, I have these 2 hemispheres. We're gonna put them into good use. Let's do the math. Unbelievable. Terrence, I tried, man. I tried. It's not me, it's you. The math just doesn't seem to work out.
A few moments later.
Ay, qué rico se ve eso. Te ves como travieso. Quiero probar tu.
1 hour later.
Terrence, now I get it.